this first lesson we're going to talk about scientific notation, which is basically a way of taking a big number like this and rewriting it in a smaller form like this.
We can also take a smaller number like this and changing it into a different form like this. Now let's take a look at how this works.
You're going to make sure you have your trusty TI-30XS Multiview calculator, and if you don't have one, there is an app you can get on your phone. Just go to the store and search for Graphing Calculator X84. Icon will look like this, and it looks like this when you pull it up, and we're going to kind of tell you how it'll do most of the functions that this one right here will do if you don't have one of these at home. Okay, let's go back and take a look at this number, which is 2,570,000, and let's talk about how we turn this into scientific notation. So with scientific notation, you take whatever the very first leading number is, and you write that 2, and then anything after it that's not a 0, we put a decimal and you put 57. So it's 2.57. And then you put a times 10, and then there's always a little exponent that goes right here. So I'm going to show you how you figure out what exponent goes here. So 2,570,000, if it had a decimal, it would come right here at the end of that last 0. What we have to do is say, how many times would I have to move it to the left so that it ended up right there, kind of where that comma is. So let's move it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this ends up being 2.57 times 10 to the 6. So remember, if we took 2.57, that 6, what it really does is it takes the decimal and it moves it 6 spaces to the right. So this 2.57 ends up being 2,570,000. All right, then let's take a look at that small number, this one, 0.0000783. All right, to go scientific notation with a number that's really small, kind of go this way and see 7 is the first number that's not a 0. So you write 7, and then you put point, and then give these guys in there, 8, 3, times 10. And we got to find the decimal that goes here. So if our number's really small, we're going to take it from here, and you actually want to move it in between the 7 and the 8. So that's where it's got to go. It's got to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So it actually moves 5 times. But we're going to put a negative 5. When you say 7.83 times 10 to the negative 5th, what that says is this decimal right here, to put it back to that number, you'd have to move it left 5 times.
Okay, now we're going to look at example 1. We're going to be dealing with 600,000, and we're going to be converting this to scientific notation, meaning it's going to be times 10 to something. Okay, so we're going to look at how to do this on our calculator. So there is a scientific mode on our calculator. So if we put in 600,000 and push enter, normally it's just going to give us 600,000. We can't figure out anything that way. But if we clear it, go to mode, and change it from normal to scientific, and then go back and put in 600,000, then press enter, it gives it to us in scientific notation, 6 times 10 to the 5th power. Alright, now looking at example 2, we're going to use our home calculator on our phones, the app we downloaded. Okay, so it's the same thing. You have to change the mode into scientific. So we're going to go to mode again, and up here at the top it says notation. We're going to change from normal to scientific. Exit out of that. Now we're going to enter the number they give us. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 numbers in there, but we've only got 7 zeros. That 6 does not count. We're going to put 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros, and then add a 6. And then we can press enter, and it gives us 6e to the negative 8. Move it over here. So that e means times 10 to the negative 8. Okay, looking at example number 3. This one's a little backwards. This gives you a problem in scientific notation, and the answers are in like billions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions or 7 million.
You actually don't want your calculator to be in scientific notation mode. So if it is, you can just come back down and put it into normal mode. And we're just gonna do 7, and there's actually a button on your calculator that does the times 10 to the, if you hit that, and then we're putting a 7 there, and I'm gonna hit enter, and then I'm gonna go, how many, 7, and how many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but 8 total numbers. 7, 1, 2, 3. Okay, here's example number 4. Few things, we actually realized you do have some calculator problems, so it's not hard, you just gotta be smart about this. Note, the problem is in scientific notation, and you're supposed to convert it. Notice that it says 3 times 10 to the negative 6. That means it's not gonna be in the millions, it's gonna have like, it's gonna be small, like it's gonna be 0.00000, whole bunch of zeros and then a 3 somewhere. Using the phone calculator, again, if the answers aren't in scientific notation, you don't want to be in scientific notation mode. Make sure you're in normal mode. Clear everything. Let's pretend you didn't see that. 3 times 10 to the negative 6. This calculator does have a 10 to the x button up here, but it's just kind of a pain because you have to hit second to get to it anyway. So I just typed it in. When I hit enter, I wanted to say a bunch of zeros, but it doesn't. It says that 3e to the negative 6, which means, 3e to the negative 6. That doesn't help. That just means it's 3 times 10 to the negative 6. This calculator would do that. This calculator would get it done for you. If you put 3 times 10 to the negative 6, this one works. But if your calculator's not doing what you want it to do, all you have to do is write 3, and you put a decimal right there, and then to go to the negative 6 means you have to go left 6 spots. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it goes right here. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, and then there's the 3. So it went there. So let's find the one that looks like 0.12345 zeros.
Okay, looking at example 5, we're going to get into some word problems here. Again, not tricky, just read the question and remember to look at the answers and see what mode you need to be in. As we see, we look at all of our answers and they're in scientific notation. So when we go to our calculator, its mode needs to be in scientific notation as well. So we'll change it to scientific, go back to the front. Now it says the circumference of Mercury is about 50 million feet. What is that number in scientific notation? So all we're going to do is enter 50 million into our calculator. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and press enter. And it'll give it to us in scientific notation mode. Alright, let's look at another word problem example. Now we're going backwards this time. Says a Tyrannosaurus fossil is discovered by scientists. She estimates the dinosaur weighed about 1 times 10 to the 4th pounds when it was alive. What is this weight written in standard form? Okay, now we're going to use a app calculator this time. Again, most important rule, we have to look at our answers and see what form they're in. It is not in scientific notation. So we don't need to be in scientific notation mode. I'll go to my calculator, make sure it's not scientific, it's a normal. Great. We'll exit back out. Now we'll type it in scientific notation mode. So 1 times 10 to the 4th power. Press enter. It shows our answer is 10,000.
Example number 7, as you're going to see here, I'm going to zoom in just on the problem for the answers, well, for a second. See, that looks a little bit crazy. You're doing a scientific notation thing divided by a scientific notation thing, and the answers are all in scientific notation. But remember what we've been saying. If your answers are in scientific notation, take your handy calculator tool and make sure your mode is in science. See, mine's already in there. But as long as your mode's in scientific notation, we can enter this crazy beast right here into the calculator, and it's going to give us a scientific notation answer. I'm gonna start by hitting the fraction button. Right, you should know fraction button right there. And then I'm gonna put 1.4 times, oh wait, you know what, I'm gonna do the fancy button right here. That'll just put times 10 to the -5th. Come down here, I'm gonna say 2 times, I did it again. There, 2 times 10 to the 13th. Now when I hit enter, I'm expecting some answer in scientific notation, 7 times 10 to the -19th. And that's it right there, 7 times 10 to the -19th. But I do want to point out one thing with the other calculator. So, like, you can do all this on here too. Again, remember, mode, it needs to be in scientific mode. But also, you might not know what the fraction button is on this. All you gotta do, it's like a secret. It's like you hit alpha and it's like here, this n over d is right there. So you can do the same thing that we did. The last example, instead of dividing, we are multiplying. Scientific notation. Check the answers. Look, answers are all in scientific notation mode. So of course, I want my calculator to be in scientific notation mode. And I'm gonna use the cell phone calculator. Checking my mode. Scientific mode is on. So we got there. There's gotta be parentheses. Wait, here we go. Parentheses. That looks like 8 times 10 to the 5th. 8 times 10 to the 5th. I'm going to go to the right and then hit parentheses there. Then parentheses 5 times 10 to the 8th. And I think you gotta go hit to the right before you hit that parentheses right there. And when I hit enter, there it is. It says 4e14. Just remember that 4e14, that's the same as 4 times 10 to the 14th power.